Yeah.
So you know you're in San Francisco.
Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we are on location in San Francisco, and we have the great opportunity to speak with Dr. Emmett Miller, who is a physician and renowned for his work in hypnotherapy and mind-body healing through a many series of tapes that he has assembled, audio and video, over the years, where his commanding voice has helped many people through extreme difficulties, from pain to anxiety to just helping them realize a greater sense of self-esteem, and has been a great motivator in many people's lives. Along that line, I would want to give you some idea of just a few of the fine things that people have said about Dr. Miller over the years. This is a quote from Joan Baez, one of his great fans. Through the principles made clear in this illuminating breakthrough book, Deep Healing, which we're going to be speaking about tonight, Dr. Miller's latest book, Dr. Miller has guided me on an astounding journey of profound physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing. That's Joan Baez. Then, Dr. Bernie Siegel has, for him and his own family, been using Dr. Miller's tapes for many years themselves for their own healing. And it says this is what Dr. Bernie Siegel says. Dr. Emmett Miller's work and tapes have been utilized by the Siegel family personally and professionally. They have enhanced our lives and have been used with great success in our work. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome you onto the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Emmett. Great. Wonderful. Could you just give us an idea of how it is you got involved in this work and going into medicine, and then once in medicine, making a bit of a detour and going into mind-body medicine, something obviously conventional medicine has not quite caught on to?
I guess you might say it all happened when I was very young. When I was a child, I noticed a curious phenomenon that kids seemed to know how to have fun, but adults didn't. Adults seemed to be all the time. They beat each other up. They were unfriendly. I thought, gee, if I had a wallet with money in it and I had a car, I'd be even happier than I am now. So I decided...
Where are you from originally?
From Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, wonderful.
So I decided...
Many of our audience members will be very pleased to hear that.
Hi, Brooklyn. So I decided I wanted to try to hold on to whatever it was that I knew as a child. And I used to sit as a child and I would think of how good it felt to be a child, and I would try to picture myself at age 40. And I would say, at the age of 40, I want to be able to sit down and remember myself sitting on this stump on this day,
projecting forward.
And at 40, I want to remember this moment.
Yeah.
And check to make sure that I still feel the same. And if I haven't, I want to do something about it, because I don't want to become like my teachers. Right. So as I went on up through school, I found out that my ideas were not very interesting to people in the fields of art and English. But in mathematics and science, I always got the same answer that was in the back of the book. So I went ahead and studied engineering and physics, and ultimately was studying mathematics in getting my degree in mathematics. And it was in the middle of getting my degree in mathematics that I began to realize that mathematicians lived a lifestyle that was different from what I was interested in, because I also had discovered a great deal of joy in helping people who weren't feeling good. So I talked with my registrar at school, and he said, well, you should consider going to medical school. I said, well, that seems to make a lot of sense. I know mathematics, I know how to think, I know how logic works. It's 1962. I had learned how to program computers back at that time.
God almighty.
And
there was only one computer around then.
Right, and it was a very big one.
That's right.
It was the size of like a football stadium.
You're right.
It did about as much as my laptop does. So I wanted to go to medical school, because I figured that way I could learn everything there was to know about the mind and the body, and I would be able to learn what was necessary in order to continue to be happy and healthy and enjoy life. When I got into medicine, and nobody was interested in that in medicine, they were interested in disease. Instead of coming to medical school and being given a live, healthy body to look at, the first day they gave me somebody who's been dead for 6 months. And you work up.
Cadavers, anyone?
Right. And so my interest,
I tell you.
my interest was quite different from most of the people who were in medical school.
Right.
So that by the time I had finished medical school, I had begun to discover that my relationship with people was much more important than the drugs that I gave them in many, many cases. And the likelihood of a person recovering from surgery had as much to do with their belief in me and their faith in what I was doing as it did in my surgical skill.
And your relationship.
Exactly. And soon after I finished medical school, I discovered the field of hypnotherapy, medical hypnosis, back in the 60s. And that was fascinating because here was a way that people could be guided into a different state of consciousness. And in that different state of consciousness, I mean, I could speak to someone. I could say 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now your shoulder will be numb, and I can take my scalpel and go into your shoulder and pull out this whatever was embedded in there, stitch it up and close you up. You don't feel any pain, and you don't bleed, and you don't swell very much after the surgery, and you're comfortable afterward, and you heal much more rapidly. That was very, very interesting to me.
Were you studying Ericksonian hypnosis, or
I hadn't
more
discovered
standard? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the
Hypnosis.
standard kind of hypnosis.
More for pain control.
And I began to notice that I said, if that can be done, what else is possible? And I began to pay attention to what hypnosis was doing. In those days, we thought that hypnosis was a way of controlling people. And yet, as I watched, it really seemed that the power was in the subject, not in the hypnotist, no matter how the hypnotists kind of puffed themselves up.
Sure.
Further, I began to realize something very interesting. Is in hypnosis, if you say to someone, "Can you tell me your name?" they say, "Yes." You say, "Will you tell me your name?" They say, "Yes." You say, "Tell me your name." They say, "John."
Right.
And it's
very literal.
It's exactly the way I had learned to program a computer. You can't say add this to that and then add this and then you have to say add this to this. Okay, now add that. Now subtract this. Now do that.
Commands.
One at a time, though. Very short, simple sentences. And so primary process thinking was how people thought in the state of hypnosis. And so too, that's the way a computer thought. So I began to conceptualize the brain as a kind of a biocomputer. And anyone who builds a computer also there's a program for that computer so the computer can repair itself. You don't unscrew a computer every time it crashes, you put a diagnostic program into it. So I then spent the next 10 years designing a diagnostic program, something where people would come to me, and my practice was in mind-body medicine, which was a rare thing at the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s.
Oh, that's for sure.
And I was a physician, so I could do surgery and prescribe medication. But I would say...
Did you do surgery?
Yes. And I would say to someone, you have high blood pressure, I can give you medication for that. It'll make you drowsy. After a while, it may make you impotent, and you also can lose all the white blood cells in your blood. That's a possibility, but there's another way if you'd like to try that first. You'd be surprised how many people were willing to say, yes, I'm willing to try some other way. And I would say,
pleased to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm encouraged.
I would then describe to them how hypertension, high blood pressure, was caused by tension of the muscles in the arteries, how the muscles in the arteries could be relaxed if we would use the mind in a certain way.
He's hypnotizing you folks.
Right here.
Right. Pay close attention.
At least we know you're not driving right now.
Right. Or operating heavy machinery.
So I began to look for what were the ways of guiding a person into the healing state of consciousness, number one. And then what are the kinds of thoughts that a person could be guided to think? Because when you think a series of thoughts, it induces a state of mind. If you sit down and think about the 20 most terrible things you can think of, on the planet at this time, you're going to feel miserable in 5 minutes. If you spend 5 minutes describing the most beautiful place you've ever seen, you're going to have
induces another state of mind and feeling.
Mm-hmm. So it's not that there's a waking state and a hypnotic state, but there's really an infinite number of states of mind that we're in. Some days you're feeling sharp and on the ball, other days you feel dull. Some days you feel romantic, some days you feel athletic, some days you feel wide awake. One night you can feel like you can't stay awake, you're trying to do your income tax, your eyes can't stay open, you really are trying, and a phone call comes and someone you haven't seen for several years is in town. They say, come on, we're going out to a party. Pop, you're awake.
Awake again.
For hours and hours.
So consciousness is a continuum with ever-changing flavors, you could say.
That's right.
Colors.
So how do we influence consciousness? So that we influence experience so that, let's say, I can relax before surgery, or bring my mind into a state of hyper-learning, or for Joan Baez, so she can put herself into a frame of mind in which she can project herself and put her soul into the work that she's doing, or Dan O'Brien in the Olympics, so that he cannot be tense about what he's about to do, so he can shift himself into a state where he can go to sleep at night. We can guide ourselves into a somewhat different state of consciousness and then speak to the cells of the body, tell smooth muscles to relax, speak to the immune system, and so forth. So what I began to look for is what are that series of thoughts that will produce an image in the mind. We hold the image in the mind. That image in the mind then speaks to the cells of the body, and that facilitates the process of healing. So that's what my work became, and so I started the practice of mind-body medicine in 1970 or 71, and that's how I got to be a kind of forerunner of, Bernie Siegel and, folks like that.
Sure. You were using your mind and body, and recognizing that they are really, it's a spiral. It's absolutely one and the same, just a different piece of the whole. Really.
But now the challenge is that people have been trained by our culture to not have any control over themselves. We're accustomed to being told what to do. We read a newspaper, that tells us what to believe.
Very true.
Look at television tells us what to do.
That's right.
If Michael Jordan uses a certain underarm deodorant, it must be good. And that's why he gets $1 million for saying, I use this.
In other words, we are saying, Emmett, is that we're taught to be programmed rather than to program ourselves.
Exactly. So the challenge is to shift people into the whole concept of being able to influence their experience and influence their lives. And that took more than just a sitting down and inducing another state of consciousness within people. It took practice. But how does a person get to practice? That was difficult until the audio cassette was invented, and I was overjoyed. It was 1972, 1971, 72, because now here was a device where I could record a tape for someone, specifically for that person dealing with their asthma or their allergy or their cancer or whatever, and that person would take that tape home and listen to it 2 or 3 times a day, re-enter that state of consciousness, and just as if they're learning to play the piano or a violin or to type or whatever, they would in effect then really train the nerves of their body, train the central nervous system, so that it would now send the message that they want to send into their body. So they would train themselves how to be in a different state of consciousness, and really, to what I said, change your mind and change your life. So the audio cassette was extremely important.
Oh God, and there's nothing like sound entering the system, the psyche. I mean, after all, it's right, straddling our brain, our cerebral cortex virtually. What, as a doctor, you've been raised on the scientific method and studying the importance of probability and the power of duplication. Have you conducted tests or any kind of study on the efficacy of what you have done, and usually using especially physiological variables?
I haven't spent much time in the laboratory.
With blood pressure or EEG or any other kinds of so-called objective measurements to see what the effects are. I'm following everything you're saying, and I agree and I concur, and I've done it, some of it myself. But the question becomes then, a scientist would want to ask, well, how do you know these things are true beyond the creative formulation of your own mind? What objective data do you have?
Well, I haven't specifically done the tests, but many have been done, such as the headache clinic in the University of Cincinnati, who uses the tapes. I might say that what I did in 1973 is begin to produce tapes that could be distributed and given to patients by other professionals, because nobody had any idea about how to do this.
I see.
No one knew about deep relaxation. No one knew about guided imagery. And so this was really...
It was very much at the forefront at that time.
That was the beginning of it. And so many people began to use them, and they did tests on them for me, and the tapes are still available.
I see.
And they're used at Harvard. They're used if you have surgery at the Mayo Clinic, they'll play my video for you. If you're a member of Kaiser Foundation Hospital, their outpatient clinic recommends the tapes to people. So they're really a standard throughout the country now.
Right.
So many tests have been done indicating that people are shifted into a more relaxed state. People recover from surgery much more rapidly, are usually released from the hospital, some 20 to 25% early.
Were those tests basically done on observation?
Yes.
And just compiling empirical results as opposed to doing objective study? They listen to the subjective reportage of the patients.
Well, I'll also look at how much...
I consider that valid, by the way.
Yeah, and how much pain medication they use.
I see. So there could be a concomitant reduction in pain. I see. Right. Okay.
But after
nice.
After having practiced conventional medicine for about 5 or 6 years, it was clear to me what to expect in terms of healing. And then I can work with people and see what the difference is. And then most of the people that I would see had been referred to me after they had been through 5 or 10 different medical specialists and psychologists and this, that, and the other.
I see.
So these were the kind of people that everyone had given up on, and they were even more responsive,
sure,
to the tools.
More open, more everything. Exactly. After 5 or 6 years of conventional practice, you learned that it was most smart to become unconventional, no doubt.
Right.
Let's get into a little bit of your book, because this is the latest creation of yours among so many. And could you just tell us a little bit about what you go into in the book?
Yeah, well, the book is really...
This is generally available, I take it, in bookstores across the country.
Across the country.
Great.
It is, it's really the summary of my development of the field of mind-body medicine beginning from back in the 1960s. I even begin, right in the first chapter, I talk about an experience that I had in medical school in which a woman was lying in bed. We as medical students were brought in. We had a famous British surgeon. He walked over to the bed. The woman was lying in pain in bed, and he walked over, grabbed the sheet, and he pulled the sheet back without saying good afternoon. And underneath it, she had a hospital gown, but it was all wrinkled up under her shoulders and wet from her perspiration. She was in so much pain, she didn't even flinch when he did this. And she's surrounded by 7 medical students and a surgeon. And the surgeon proceeded to tell us, this woman is suffering from acute pancreatitis because she's an alcoholic. Acute pancreatitis is an extremely painful condition. And he then went ahead and he pressed in on her belly. As he pressed in on her belly, she really began to moan in pain, moaning and moaning, and then quickly he let go. That's what we call testing for rebound tenderness. And at that point, she shrieked, and everyone in the room jumped.
Hit the ceiling.
As exhausted as she was able to do that. And then she just kind of lay there sweating in pain. He said, this is the most painful kind of rebound tenderness you'll find. Then he turned to me and he'll say, demonstrate rebound tenderness, Dr. Miller. I wasn't a doctor, but they always call you that in medical school just so that you know your place. And I looked at her and I said, this could be someone's mother. This is someone's daughter. And what right? I don't even know this woman. I said to him, I can see, I've demonstrated rebound tenderness before. I can see this is greater than any I've seen before, and I don't really see a reason to hurt her again. He said, I said, demonstrate rebound tenderness. And I say, no, I won't do it. He said, then step back, Dr. Miller. And he had all 6 of the other medical students demonstrate rebound tenderness on this woman. This is a world-famous surgeon in a very fine hospital. And I said, something's wrong in the field of medicine. I've come in here because I wanted to heal people, because I wanted to help people. But that is not the basic rule here. It should be. And from all I had learned in my early courses, the first rule of medicine is to do no harm. So I began to realize that my pathway was different from the pathway of other people. And so this book really starts at that point. And then I take people in the book, I take you through some of the stories that introduced me to how you could change what's happening in the gastrointestinal system, how you can change what's happening in the immune system, how you can change thinking, how you can change habit patterns in your life, how you can reach levels of high performance, all annotated with personal stories from my own life, as well as clinical stories of people that I worked with. And then there are 12 different experiential sections of the book so people can put it to work in their own lives. You turn on a tape recorder and you read what's in there into the tape recorder. You create your own training tape, and then you listen to that tape for several days or a week or so. Then you read the next chapter, make yourself a tape. And so the book is also a training for people.
How-to. That's beautiful. Wow, your storytelling is quite profound.
So I meant it. Yeah. I meant it really as a way of summing up my 25 or 30 years. I've written several other books before this, but this is the final one for this phase of work, and much of my work will now go in another area, which has more to do with interaction with the natural environment, and more of a spiritual side of it, and more of a family and community focus, rather than being more focused on the physical
individual
healing.
Oh, okay.
But when I talk about deep healing, I got that title because I was looking for years, literally for years, for a title that would encompass the area that I had worked in. I wanted to encompass the physical body, the emotions, wanted to encompass the mind or thinking, the spirit, behaviors, relationships with other people, relationship to the natural environment. I wanted all of those things to be included in here because they're not really separate.
No, they're not.
We learn things in school, English and Spanish and mathematics and science, as if they're different. They're not different.
The first time I went to a psychiatrist, and the only time I went, was my first year in college. I was going to a nice little artsy-fartsy school up on the Hudson River by Woodstock. And I went to study parapsychology as a means of proving the existence of God through telepathy and other such prescient, types of phenomena. And they wouldn't let me because I didn't have calculus at that point in time and the higher level mathematics I would need. And they really wanted to discourage me and just have me follow rats in a cage. And little did I know then what good training that was for dealing with human beings. But I learned that only later. But they were smarter than I realized. But I had no interest really in doing any such thing. And I found, Emmett, that I was learning more about psychology studying ancient literature because my teacher kept bringing in the work of Carl Jung, the work of Gurdjieff, and other enlightened thinkers who were shedding tremendous light, including, of course, Homer and Hesiod and others. And I was learning so much about human nature by reading literature. So I actually left psychology, but I had gone to school to study psychology because I had wanted to be originally a doctor, actually, and then I learned quickly that that really wasn't my path, but being a therapist was. And I was so divided because I said, well, if I get a degree in literature, but I want to be a psychotherapist, how is it going to flesh out in the real, world afterwards? And that created such a division in me. when I saw the relationship truly between psychology and literature, and it's one and the same, as you were suggesting, so I actually went for the counsel of a psychiatrist to help me bridge this gap. Unfortunately, or whatever, he wasn't much help, but I did go back home and do my own homework, and it actually, as Nietzsche says, anything that doesn't kill you builds character, and I felt on the verge at that moment of having to just reach inside and be willing to validate my own sense of what was right in the situation, and did indeed then make a choice to go into literature and felt absolutely fine about it, and then pursue graduate work in psychology later on. But I understand your point is really well taken by me.
That's the other thing, is all in the margins, running all through Deep Healing. I have quotes from, here's one from Mark Twain, here's one from Hans Selye, and here's from Baba Muktananda, Henry Ford, wonderful, and so forth. As you look through, the same principles occur again and again and again.
Exactly.
People in everywhere you look. And my interest was, what is the same that's being said in all these areas?
Exactly.
People are so interested.
The underlying universal principles.
Yeah. People are looking at differences. No, this one's black, or this one's Jewish, or this one's French, or this one's a psychologist, or this one's a board certified, this, that, or the other. But what is it that's in common? Because it's like the five blind men and the elephant.
Exactly.
And so my focus was to say, what's right there.
Exactly.
At the middle.
I'd like to ask you, what are your feelings about subliminal tapes? And conveying subliminal messages on audio tape, since you have been such an expert in the use of sound and voice to convey.
In videotape, messages can be conveyed.
Oh, okay, so that's a visual.
And the visual.
But how about auditory?
I have questions about what can be conveyed auditorily.
Or their efficacy?
In terms of sound, which cannot be consciously heard. I don't know that tachistoscopically you can do that visually, just because of how
the eye works.
Yeah. But in terms of how the auditory is. Now, if you hear two conversations, so one person can be talking, another one speaking in the background, that you can hear, but if you listen to person A, person B will influence you, even though you're not focusing on it. But if you turn person B down to the point where it's inaudible, I have questions about whether or not that makes enough of an impact upon the nervous system to have an effect.
I see. Interesting. You're an excellent person to ask, because you've been in the domain of tape making and influencing people for so long. What, in your experience, I know that there are many, many stories that you can tell, and I know you tell many in this book, but of the few that you're particularly proud of and feel very good about over the years, are there a couple of stories that you would like to share with our audience about changes? Especially, I think I would like to look at not even so much the emotional, but the physiological. The physiological ones. This isn't fair, because you've only got 1 minute to do so. And I want to give your phone number and email address if you'd like, so people can get in touch with you and learn more about your tapes and your books as well. Is there one story that you could quickly grab? Well, you mentioned gastrointestinal problems before as one of the things that you've worked with.
I would say, very briefly, there's something that I begin most of my tapes with, and the words are, allow yourself to sit comfortably and become aware that at this moment in time, there's no other place you have to go, nothing that you have to do, and there's no problem that you have to solve. And therefore, you can give yourself permission to relax. and that's all.
It works.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
And there are now about 3 million people who will immediately go, oh yeah, I remember that.
Including me. Wonderful. The time really passed. I mean, it's we collapsed it. We collapsed it. Would you kindly give your phone number or email?
Sure.
So people can reach you if they like.
The phone number is 1-800-52-TAPES, because I have 52 different tape programs that I've created since 1978.
Fantastic.
And just gradually, on different topics from healing and so forth. 1-800-52.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. We're very glad that you've joined us again today. My number is 212-420-0800. Feel free to call and share your thoughts and feelings with me, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.